Hello, lovelies. Happy Feel Good Friday. I'm really excited to be here with you today live to share some of my tried and true tips for how to combat the symptoms of colds and flu without taking harsh medications over the counter or prescription. So today I'm going to cover with you as succinctly as I can, of course, how to tackle sinus related problems, everything from your runny nose and sneezing to congestion and being stuffed up to how to tame that nagging persistent cough, how to stop a sore throat dead in its tracks, and then how to deal with general aches and pains and the malaise that comes with not being well, when you have a cold or a flu. And so if you're watching this live, I don't know if anyone is here with me live yet. If you are, let me get a shout out from you. If not, if you're watching this later, I suggest that you grab a piece of paper and a pen and take some notes, because what I'm going to share with you today, you'll be able, hey Kristen, nice to see you. You'll be able to use this information any time of the year, anytime you get a cold or a flu, or even with your allergies. It should help with that. But before we start, I just want to share with you why this topic is really important to me. It has a lot of personal meaning for me. For those of you who may not know me already, I struggled with multiple chronic health problems for almost 2 decades when I was younger. And most of them actually were upper respiratory related issues. So I had recurring allergies, I had recurring sinus infections, bronchitis, and then I had adult onset asthma when I was in my late 20s. And, at the time, I just sought traditional medical treatment for those issues. I didn't really know I had any other options or that I needed any other options. So, whatever it was, you name it, I took it. It was antibiotics, antihistamines, steroids, the whole gamut. But the problem was that these problems kept coming back. They were recurring and almost endlessly recurring, and it seemed like I could never kick it. It was like these things would come on, these episodes would come on, and they'd last for weeks and sometimes even months before I could clear it up. So it took a long time and a lot of research and experimentation for me to figure some things out, but I finally broke the vicious cycle of medicating and suffering needlessly, with the end result being that I haven't had any prescription medication in more than 20 years. And in terms of over-the-counter, same thing. The only over-the-counter medication I still use occasionally is ibuprofen, and I've not taken any kind of cold or flu over-the-counter medication in that same period of time. So I think you're going to find the information I share with you pretty valuable here. But the most important thing I want to share with you that I learned from that experience and my research is that our bodies have built into them a magnificent healing system that is constantly working and fighting to protect us from bugs, bacteria, viruses, foreign invaders like chemicals and toxins. And it can do a great job if we support it, or at a minimum get out of our own way, right? And so the problem with a lot of medications is that they're palliative in nature, and what that means is that they're designed to address the symptoms and not the underlying root cause of the problem. And because of that, when you take medication, it confuses your body's vital force, and it then interferes with its own natural healing process, which is why when we get sick like that, sometimes it can take a really long time to get better, because the body's still doing its job, and while we're suppressing the symptoms with the medication, the body's working overtime to try to figure out what it needs to do to get us healthy again. Hi, Sue. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. So it basically puts an extra load on your liver and your kidneys, which are our body's major organs of detoxification. And especially over-the-counter medications and some prescription medications have other harsh ingredients that add to the burden. And as I mentioned, I don't know if you caught my Hump Day Health Tip video earlier this week, but I did mention there that how we deal with viruses, bacterial infections, and other illnesses, and how quickly we are able to heal and recover are largely dependent on the condition of our immune system. So how strong is your immune system? How solid is it? And most of us have compromised immune systems. So the problem is, like, when you're taking medication, it's almost like putting fuel on the fire, because now you're adding to your body's burden, the kidneys and the liver's ability to process and metabolize these added ingredients that come in with the medication. So, obviously, having a strong immune system is really important, and the best way to do it is to be supporting it all year round. And so that's a big topic and a topic for another day, and I promise I'm going to be doing more on that topic in the future. But for now, let's just say that if you want to protect yourself from getting sick and shorten your bounce back time, the amount of time it takes for you to recover, then you got to promote your immune system and support it all year round. And the best way I know how to do that is to eliminate all the toxins, manage your stress. You got to get a handle on your stress if that's an issue for you. And then, of course, eating healthy. And those three things are big topics in and of themselves. And, of course, I'm also going to be addressing those in the weeks and months to come. So make sure you tune in, when I'm doing these live sessions, because I think you'll get a lot of benefit out of it. So what I'm going to share with you today are products and solutions I've successfully used in place of medications to overcome colds and flu. Now, there's one caveat. Your health is not a one-size-fits-all prescription. So what worked great for me may not work as great for you. And so you may need to do some experimenting of your own to find the right combination of remedies that work for you. But hopefully the information you get here today is going to kind of steer you in the right direction, so you know what kind of pool to play in terms of products and ingredients. There's a lot of herbs, a lot of essential oils, and even homeopathic remedies that you can use for cold and flu symptoms. And the good news is that because they're natural, your body can metabolize them and eliminate them pretty easily, and you don't have the added burden on the liver and the kidneys that come with taking medications. And so you can experiment a little bit without a fear of any kind of long-term issues or problems. Okay, so who gets what I'm talking about here? Anybody? The first thing you need to know is whether what you've got is a bacterial infection or a viral infection. Most colds and flu are viral in nature, and that's why I don't really respond well to antibiotics, although people tend to want to take antibiotics when they get those conditions. Actually, taking antibiotics when you don't have a bacterial infection is more harmful for you. It destroys the good flora, the good gut flora in your digestive tract. And a lot of times viruses actually can feed on antibiotics. So it's a good idea not to take them unless you absolutely have to. Now, how do you know if you have a viral or a bacterial infection? The best way to know is to look at the color of your snot, basically. So the snot that you're blowing out of your nose or whatever it is you're coughing up, if it's green or greenish, like yellow turning green, then that's a sign of a bacterial infection. And you may need to take antibiotics for that, but there are other solutions that you can try before you have to go that route if you'd prefer not to take antibiotics. But for today's purposes, I'm just going to focus on the symptoms of viral colds and flus. So let's start with the sinuses. Okay, sinus related. You've got congestion, stuffy nose, you can't breathe. Or the opposite, which drives me crazy really, there's a runny nose, your nose is running all the time and you're sneezing. So my favorite go-to solution for that is a neti pot. Turn it this way. It looks like a teapot without a lid. And what you do is you just fill it about halfway with purified water, and it has to be warm. So what I do is I put the water in halfway, and then I warm it up in the microwave for about 25-30 seconds. If you don't have a microwave, you can boil water, but then you got to wait for it to cool down, and you kind of have to monitor it to make sure it's the right temperature. You don't want it too hot. Your nasal passages are very delicate, and you don't want to burn them. I don't want you burning your nose, okay? But so you want to put that with water, and then you want to add like 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. I recommend Celtic sea salt, C-E-L-T-I-C, Celtic sea salt, because it has a high mineral content and it's really good for you, and it's kind of grayish in color. But if you don't have that, any type of sea salt will actually work just fine. In a pinch, you can use table salt, but I really don't recommend that. So sea salt, you put that in, you heat it up. What I do is I just kind of dip my finger in it just to make sure it's not too hot, because sometimes the vessel will, depending on what it's made out of, this one's ceramic, will be hot. You'll pull it out of the microwave and it's hot, but the water itself is not necessarily that hot. So check the temperature, put your finger in there and make sure it's not, not too hot, and then it's ready to use. And then what you do, and I'm just gonna, obviously this is empty, but just for demonstration purposes, you're gonna tilt your head to the side, and then you're gonna put the spout in there, and then you're just gonna tip it so the water goes up one nostril and out the other. It's like you're flushing your nostrils, and it removes all the excess mucus that's building up inside your nose. Now, I like to supercharge my neti pot by adding a couple of drops of this Dropwise Breathe Easy blend. It has 2 different types of eucalyptus in it that are optimum for upper respiratory issues. And it also has cedarwood, atlas, and an oil called niaouli and spike lavender. And all those oils contain something called cineole, cineole, which is the active ingredient in essential oils that's great for opening up your breathing passages. So it's really excellent. But if you don't have, you can get this at my website, by the way, dropwise.com, www.dropwise.com. You can just search on Breathe Easy, or you can go to the aromatherapy section and under essential oils, look for essential oil remedies. But if you don't want to do that, you can just use any kind of eucalyptus oil, although I don't recommend you use eucalyptus globulus. That's the most common one that you'll find in retail stores. What you want to do is use a eucalyptus radiata, radiata, or eucalyptus polybractae. I know it's a mouthful. polybractae. That's a Latin name for it. That one's a little harder to find actually in retail stores, but the radiata you should be able to find, and it's the most gentle form of eucalyptus. So I just put a drop or two after I heat it. I put a drop or two in before I do my little rinse thing. Now, this is like, I know it's going to be awkward for you if you've never done that before, but it's really fantastic way to sort of rinse out your sinuses. And then of course, you're going to need to do it a couple of times a day, depending on how congested you are or how bad your situation is. But it'll really make a big difference, and you'll get a lot of relief if you're having sinus trouble. Now, you can also old-fashioned, you can just take a bowl, fill it with boiling hot water and add a drop or two of eucalyptus oil, and then take a towel over your head and put it over the bowl and then inhale the steam. That works perfectly fine too, although I do find the rinsing aspect of the neti pot to be a lot more effective overall. If you're really stuffed up, then the quick trick that you can use is just take a smidge of peppermint essential oil and just put it at the back of the roof of your mouth. Just kind of touch it lightly. That will clear you up really fast. Now, you might have to repeat that, but if you need fast relief, that's one way to do it as well. Now, if your ears get clogged up, a lot of people get ear trouble when they have the congestion and sinus stuff. And what you can do is take like the Breathe Easy blend or a eucalyptus oil, and then just dab a little behind your ear. I'm going to demonstrate. This is where your eustachian tube is. And when it gets clogged, it gives you hearing and ear problems. So you just take the essential oil, a couple of drops, 1 or 2, and gently massage it down the tube like that to help drain it. Okay? And this is why you want the eucalyptus radiata, because it's gentle enough to put on your skin like that. So you can do that. And other things you can also do is just put a drop or 2 on a hanky, a cotton handkerchief, and keep that by your pillow at night to help open up your sinuses when you're sleeping. So that's it for the sinuses. I think, that if you've never done this before, you find it really valuable, and I highly recommend it. Of course, if you have any questions, post in the group. Happy to answer them afterwards. So how do we tame a nagging, persistent cough, right? That's one of the worst for me is when we get sick with a cold and a flu, and then you're coughing endlessly, especially at night. It really is hard to get a good night's sleep, and you need sleep when you're sick, so heal faster. And so now I shared the other day with you on the Hump Day Health Tip a quick home remedy you can do for coughing, and that is to just take a sugar cube or a teaspoon of sugar. It doesn't matter if it's white sugar or brown sugar or whatever you have on hand. Dissolve it in warm water and then gargle with it. Don't swallow, just gargle and then spit it out, and that can help give you some fast relief. Now, other products that I like to use, and now again, I'm not endorsing these products. I'll just tell you a little bit about them, and then you can look for something similar in the store. This is one of my go-to products for coughing, Old Indian Wild Cherry Bark Syrup. And it's a bunch of different herbs that are optimized for upper respiratory issues. I'm not going to read them all to you, but this stuff is magnificent for bronchial stuff. So if you've got congestion in your chest and you're coughing because of that, wild cherry bark, which is an herb, in and of itself you could use by itself. Other herbs that are really great for upper respiratory include nettles, stinging nettles, especially because it's astringent and will dry you out. Elderberry or elderflower, mullein, mullein, right? And then osha root, osha. Those are among the more powerful herbs that I found for healing upper respiratory issues. And there are quite a variety of others as well. And you'll find that sometimes when you do these blends, you'll get the benefit of all of those herbs. But of those herbs, those specific herbs I just mentioned, you can take that in a tea form. You can take it in a tincture form. or a syrup. The other thing I take with the wild cherry bark is this product. It's called Naturade Sugar-Free Expect. They do have a regular one that's not sugar-free. I take the sugar-free because I feel like, sugars already creates a lot of health problems first, so why add to the burden when you're sick? And now this is also, the active ingredient here is guaifenesin, which is an expectorant, and it's like the active ingredient in one of those Robitussin cough syrups, but it's in a bath of all kinds of herbs for upper respiratory health as well, including anise seed extract. It's got, I'll just read a few off of here for you. It's got echinacea in it, licorice root, mullein, and so it also has a variety of ingredients in here that are supportive of the upper respiratory system and not nasty additional ingredients like dextromorphin and some of the other harsh things that you'll find in over-the-counter cough medicines. So those two things together, powerhouse. I do like a tablespoon of each, and a couple times a day, usually right before bed, and then first thing in the morning, and then during the middle of the day, and that's really helped me a lot. The other thing you can do, well, for coughs, I would say that was probably the best thing that you can do for that. Now, the other thing is you can create your own vapor rub. Instead of taking Vicks Vapor, which is in a base of mineral oil, which is petroleum, and you should never rub petroleum ingredients onto your skin because they get absorbed into your body, and your body it's one more thing that your liver and your kidneys have to deal with. So what you could do is make your own homemade vapor rub, and all you would do is take some unrefined shea butter or some virgin coconut oil, which you can find in the supermarket if you don't already have that, and mix in a couple of drops of eucalyptus, just rub that into your chest, and that helps to break up the phlegm and the mucus in your chest. And then I would do that like with the expectorant to help move things. The thing that you want to do when you're sick is get things moving and out of your body. That's your lymph and all this other kind of stuff. So that's why, by the way, it's important to use Eucalyptus radiata, because the best way to get benefit from a lot of these things, you can get a lot of benefit just from inhaling, but you also want to apply topically. So you want to make sure that you're putting safe stuff on your skin. Now let's talk about how you can stop a sore throat dead in its tracks. Okay, so my magic solution for this is tea tree oil, organic tea tree oil. And it works best when you first feel the sore throat coming on. So when you start to have that feeling like in your throat, like, I think I'm getting a sore throat, what you want to do is just take a tiny bit of tea tree oil, like a smidge, like you would if you're going to do the peppermint trick I showed you earlier. Just put on your tongue and then swish it around in your saliva for, I don't know, like 30 seconds or a minute if you can, and then swallow it. It's a tiny amount, so you don't have to worry about anything. It doesn't taste great. I will warn you about that. It doesn't taste great. But if you do that like every 15 minutes for a couple of hours, and it can stop it dead in its tracks. Now, so if you're willing to put up with the not so nice taste, I think it's worth it. Now, you can also create your own sore throat gargle. Basically combine some warm water with Celtic sea salt or some other kind of sea salt and do the gargle. And that's a very basic thing. But you can supercharge that actually by doing a combination of like say a sage tea or chamomile tea, for example. You would just brew the tea, make it, and then when it cools down, you would add to that a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and I would add a spoonful of honey with a drop of geranium essential oil mixed into the honey. Now, if you have the ability to do this, I would make an infusion of sage and honey. So you can get dried sage at your herb store, or you can order it online, and then you would basically cook it under low heat in the honey, and then store that in a jar, and then just take a tablespoon of that and add that to your gargle. And then you can create a jar with a gargle and have that handy so that you can do that several times a day. I found that's been really helpful in the past with sore throats. And then the other thing is slippery elm, which is also an herb, by the way. But you can buy these ready-made slippery elm lozenges, and they're really great for soothing a sore throat. And really great, too, if your throat's just dry. If you're not sick, if you have a dry throat, this is a great way to soothe it. You can also take slippery elm as an herb. You can make a slippery elm syrup. Not really a syrup. It's kind of more like a gel. And just take that internally as well. And slippery elm, by the way, just has an added benefit of soothing your stomach and your digestive system too. So if you're having a stomach flu, you might find slippery elm a lot more helpful. I hope you're finding this information helpful. I'm going to sort of round it out here with some information on how to deal with general aches and pains and general malaise. So what can you do for your aches and pains? You could take ibuprofen. I don't recommend it because ibuprofen will put an added burden on your liver and your kidneys. So it's okay if you take it once or twice, but if you're sick for like 5 days, a week or more, and you're taking it every day, that's a problem. So you don't want to do that. A couple of things that have helped me are taking hot Epsom salt baths. So take a bath with hot Epsom salts. Epsom salts are really great for soothing and relaxing muscles and for drawing toxins out of the body. And you can supercharge your Epsom salt bath by adding a couple drops of essential oil, either eucalyptus or lavender or both, or the Breathe Easy blend that I shared with you a little bit earlier. Lavender can help you calm down, which might help you get a better night's rest. And so that's one. The other thing is that a lot of aches and pains are due to inflammation. So one of the things you want to do is increase your intake of anti-inflammatory foods and herbs. Things like onion and garlic are, if you can stomach those, really good anti-inflammatory. An excellent anti-inflammatory herb is turmeric. Right? Well, be careful with turmeric because it can stain. It's yellow and it stains very easily. But like one way you can do it, I like this, is you can make a warm almond milk. You can heat some almond milk on the stove, preferably unsweetened. Add a tablespoon of turmeric powder, and then add a half teaspoon of virgin coconut oil. Now, that's really important because your body needs the fat in order to be able to readily absorb the turmeric and benefit from its effects. So you need to have a good fat in the mix, and coconut oil will actually add a little bit of sweetness to it. Now, if you still don't like the taste of that, you can still add, like, I would add like a teaspoon of raw organic honey, but don't go overboard on the sweetness, you know. And just sip that, you know, sip that a couple times a day. I think you'll find it. It'll be helpful. You want to do whatever you can to reduce inflammation. And then, of course, drinking fluids and staying hydrated. It's really important, right? Like, remember what I said earlier about how you want to move things out of the body? The best way to do that is to do that with water and staying hydrated. And I actually recommend coconut water because coconut water is naturally high in electrolytes. And so you want coconut water, but not any one that has added sugar in it, right? Just regular coconut water. And, of course, drinking lots of these herbal teas, you know, and teas like ginger and peppermint, which can help with your digestive tract and your stomach. Ginger is very warming, so if you've got the chills, that's a great way to address that. And then elderberry tea is very astringent, so it'll dry up your sinuses if you're having a lot of sinus issues. And then last but not least, you want to load up on vitamin C and echinacea. So I usually take anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day in the first few days when I first get sick. And I usually do it in the form of I used to take Emergen C, which is like 1,000 milligram of C in a kind of a bubbly, if you've never had it, it kind of foams up. You just add water to it and it kind of foams up, and then you can drink that. But I recently found a brand that I like better that doesn't have sugar in it. So it's got the 1,000 milligrams of C, but no sugar, and it's called Effer C, EFFER-C, Effer C, and I believe it's made by a company called Now Foods. So you want to load up on your vitamin C, and if you can take echinacea as a tincture. I don't take it because it's typically mixed in with some of these other products that I take already. But sometimes if I feel I need like a little extra, I will. Or I'll just get it in a tea form. And there's a tea out there, traditional medicines and medicinal teas, I think is the brand, and they have a tea that's an echinacea and elderberry mixture. And that's a really great one to take. And then, of course, you've got to get lots and lots of rest. I mean, that is the primary way you can support your body in doing its healing work. And I know it's a drag. We all hate being laid up flat in bed sick, and we all feel like, oh my God, we're falling behind and we're so unproductive. But you know what? Drop the guilt. Drop the guilt and get some rest. That's the best advice I can give you. It's the best way you can support your body in doing its healing work. And using these herbal and aromatherapy products are going to be a lot more gentle on your body and support it in that process as well, instead of interfering with it. So, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of different herbs and oils and homeopathic remedies. I didn't really talk about homeopathic remedies today. That would be a topic for another session. And basically, you know, there's a range within which you can play with. So I, gave you my tried and true products that work for me. You can try them and see how they work for you, and you can build off of that, off your knowledge. And hopefully you found this valuable and useful, and this information will help you feel good if you're not feeling so good today, or anytime you have a cold and a flu. So hopefully this was helpful. Until next time, have a healthy and vibrant day. Bye, everyone.